Christian, I knew I wasn't supposed to lust, so viewing porn was not allowed. If your only reason to not watch porn is because of a rule, you'll eventually break it. We all have weak days, moments of anger, or opportunities of anonymity. Even the strongest will eventually cave, self-justify, or rebel. The reasons I chose sexual integrity, my wife, my 4 kids. I read the articles about men who don't find human sex appealing anymore. I don't want my mind to be conditioned by virtual sex. So it's a choice, every single day. I've had relapses. Thankfully, they have been short and shallow. I have ongoing temptations, but guardrails like ever accountable make it easier to remember the cost of choosing sin. Long term, my prayer is that I will have my wife by my side until I die, because she is my daily reminder that life is better with sexual integrity.
Hello and welcome to Unreligiously. My name is Lauren, and today we are going to be talking about something that the church loves to hate, and you might love to hate it too. The best part about this video is that our opinions about it don't matter. What we're focusing on is how the church talks about it, okay? Today we are talking about porn and masturbation. If you grew up in purity culture or the evangelical sphere, you already know how central this topic is to how it shapes people, especially young people that are in the church and coming up in purity culture programming. I would say that's people anywhere from age 12 to maybe 30. A lot of young adults get this messaging and it is so deeply harmful. This video is not going to be trying to convince you to change your personal opinion on porn or masturbation. This is not about defending use, about defending the porn industry, or telling anybody what to do with their bodies or what boundaries that you should have in your own marriage. This is about how the evangelical church uses sexual shame to create cycles of guilt, and it's all marketed under the banner of freedom in Christ, but it's anything but that. We're going to unpack purity culture, addiction rhetoric, shame cycles, accountability groups, gender double standards, and the big business behind the freedom from porn ministries. Buckle in, it's gonna be a long ride. Let's go.
The evangelical church is not a regular cult, it is an X-rated cult. And it's hard to comprehend just how X-rated the evangelical environment is unless you have been immersed in it at one point.
Let's start with the word that gets thrown around constantly, way too often in evangelical circles. Addiction. In most evangelical spaces, the moment that you admit to watching porn or masturbating, they're going to label you as relapsing or struggling with a porn or masturbation addiction, someone who's addicted to pleasing the flesh. If you admit to masturbating and doing this regularly, it's not just a behavior that they're looking at, it is a spiritual stronghold that they see as Satan having in your life.
Watching porn is giving the enemy gateway to wreak destruction, wreak havoc over your life. When you entertain porn, you're opening yourself to all kind of demonic spirits. You don't understand if you have not yet come to the revelation of who you are in Christ.
They see it as you living in bondage. It's so harmful because a lot of times it is people's own natural urges. Now, of course, there is a place for the word addiction, but the point of this video is to address people who are not truly in addiction. They're just being told that as a means of control by the church. Here's the thing, and it's something that I really wish more people in the church understood. Not everything that feels compulsive or habitual is an addiction. If you told me to stop biting my fingernails, it would be extreme. I've tried a million times. I wouldn't say that it is an addiction. It's a nervous habit, it's a compulsive habit, but it's not an addiction. And there's a pretty big difference there. I think that when we're talking about things like this, it's important to use the right terminology because an addiction is a serious thing. And if you have an addiction, there can be so much healing in labeling it as what it is. But there can be so much hurt in labeling something that's not an addiction as an addiction. So just to be clear, let's break it down in really plain terms. According to the American Society of Addiction Medicine, addiction is a chronic brain disease. It involves compulsive behavior that continues despite harmful consequences. And it's often tied to neurological changes in the brain's reward and decision-making systems. Addiction typically involves things like tolerance, so needing more and more to get the same effect, withdrawal, physical or emotional symptoms when you stop, having cravings for that thing, so intense urges that are hard to control, loss of control, not being able to stop when you want to, and disruption of life. So this could be damaging your relationships, work, health, or your safety. Let's be honest, the average teenager or adult who occasionally looks at this type of thing or masturbates does not meet this definition, even if they're doing it a few times a week. Not mean that they're addicted. They may feel guilt and they may feel shame. And I really want to stress, you guys, the difference between being addicted to something and having conflicted feelings about doing something that goes against your values. They may feel guilt or shame, especially if they were raised in purity culture or in church environments, but again, we have to look, where is that coming from? And does this actually meet the scientific criteria?
Religion has always been about control, and it's time for the people to wake up. They needed you to believe that God was just testing you to see if you'd be faithful, and that your suffering and trials were building perseverance, and to count it all joy. Why? Because they wanted you to shut up and do whatever they said. They can spend their time planning and plotting on how to keep you sick while you're preoccupied with whether or not God is pleased with your life or not. It really is the biggest scam of all time. Religion has always been about control.
It's really important when you read sources about porn to make sure you know where it's coming from and know that it's coming from a scientifically backed study. I can't stress enough how many of the resources are religious, you guys. When I go and look for information, it's difficult because I do believe that this is a real thing and I want to validate it, but at the same time, it's not in the DSM, and the research out there is just so limited because it is a lot of it religious studies or coming from religious websites, or the studies were conducted by sites like Covenant Eyes, which we'll get more into later. What the evangelical church describes as an addiction is more like panic and religious guilt. They label any sexual thought, fantasy, or impulse that isn't controlled or prayed away as pathological. It would be like saying that anybody that has premarital sex has a sex addiction. No one is saying that, though. Lots of Christians feel bad that they are having premarital sex and they feel convicted about it, but they still keep doing it. And no Christian comes to them and says, hey, this is a sex addiction. Look at what you're doing. This could be hurting your future marriage. No one says that. But with masturbating or porn, they're so quick to jumping to saying the same thing. And I think that it's unfair. So just make sure when you guys look stuff up for yourself, and I encourage you, don't take my word for it. I'm just a person on the internet. Go research it, but look for real resources. It's hard to find resources that are not coming from a very specific motive. The way that the church talks about it is not medical, it's not therapeutic, it's not the undisputed way that it is, but lumping everybody into this category of addict, it not only makes people fearful themselves, but it also makes them feel like they don't have control over themselves sexually, and that's just not the case. It makes Christian wives who maybe this is a boundary in their relationship, they're like, well, it's an addiction, so I have to be understanding about that. It might not be an addiction. They're really dressing up moral judgment in clinical language to get your buy-in here. There are people who genuinely do struggle with these compulsive sexual behaviors, and they deserve evidence-based care, and they deserve their issues to not be minimized. They don't deserve spiritual shame and filters on their phones and forced accountability partners with people that they want to respect them. It creates anxiety where there shouldn't be any. It turns a normal part of human development, especially for teenagers. And I'm not, again, this isn't talking about excessive or addictive use. We're talking about a teenager that would be doing normal sexual exploration for their age. The church will turn it into something that's treated like a heroin addiction. And that confusion benefits the church at the end of the day, because the more addicted that you think you are, the more that you're going to need their help, their program, and their solution. You're going to need their path forward because they're the ones that have brought this problem to your attention in the first place. You feel guilty, that just proves even more to them that you are addicted. And then because you're addicted, you need an accountability partner.
Having super strength has its perks around the house. Like this, or this, or this. I don't feel like opening it. But my powers don't help me overcome my struggle with pornography. The problem with quitting porn is that it doesn't matter how strong you are. It won't work if you try alone. You need a sidekick. Batman needs Robin. Ant-Man needs the Wasp. And I need Jeff. He's my best friend, even though he doesn't have powers.
Or do I?
You don't.
But maybe I do.
He doesn't.
Yet.
He won't.
But maybe.
You need discipleship. You need to submit to spiritual authority, and you need to join a men's group or a women's group or porn and masturbation specific Bible studies. You need to give up control of your devices. Maybe even let someone else manage your passwords for you. And you need to confess every single week. Now, congratulations. You've been sucked into a cycle that you can't really get out of. Here's how the shame cycle works. You watch porn or you masturbate. Then you feel bad about it. Not just disappointed in yourself, but like spiritually filthy and disgusting on the inside. All of those purity culture lessons of a little bit of dog poop in the ice cream, yeah, that all starts resurfacing for you.
You know, a lot of times people think, well, you know, it's just a little bit of sin. It's no big deal. No big problem. You know, everybody does it. And we sort of diminish the idea of sin in our lives. So I try to point out how silly that really is, because what we want to do is we want to live a life that's pure and not filled with all kinds of little rubbish of sin in it. And the way I show this to kids is simply by doing something like this. I go, hey, would any of you guys, especially if it's a hot afternoon or hot evening, you guys like a nice cold drink? And they all go, yeah. You know, kids will put their hands up. And I go, yeah, come on up, man. I want to give you a nice cold drink. Kid will come up to in front of everybody. I'll then pick up a trash can, and I will take the contents of the trash can, and I will dump them all out onto the floor. And then I will do is I will take the drink and pour it into the trash can. And then I will get the cup, and I will take the contents from the trash can and pour it into the cup. And then I will offer it to the kid. Here you go. Here's your cold drink. I've yet to have somebody accept this cold drink. And I go, well, what's the problem? Well, because there's trash in it. I go, well, there's not. I mean, there's just a little bit of things floating in it. And a kid go, no way, man. I don't want to put that in my body. And it's a great object lesson because, look, oftentimes we're more careful about what we put in our body. We don't want any rubbish in our body, but we're willing to have sin in our lives.
You think that you failed God and that you've let down your accountability group, that you're ruining your future marriage, or maybe you're ruining the one that you're currently in, and that you are a slave or you're becoming enslaved to lust. So you confess, you go to the group and you say, look, I slipped up. Maybe you cry, maybe you say a prayer, maybe they pray over you. And, you know, in most cases, when you go to these groups, they're not gonna shame you to your face. They're gonna pray over you and have grace for you. But I can't emphasize enough that there is shame, and people remember these types of things. Yes, in the group, if you go and you admit to struggling, they might be kind to you, but the next time you want to be in a leadership position or serve, they might go, well, you might need to get that under control first. And when I was like in middle school trying to date people and leaders being like, ooh, watch out, he watches porn. And it's like, okay, he definitely confessed that to you in a secret setting and now you, like, it always just rubbed me the wrong way. You say that you're gonna do better, you might install a filter or delete apps on your phone, and you might read scripture about purity, talk to your accountability partner, and basically white knuckle it through temptation. And for a few days, weeks, maybe even months, you feel victorious, but then inevitably, because you're a human being, you are going to slip up again. Or I shouldn't say you are, but it's likely that you will slip up again. And then the whole cycle starts over again. This is the secret that no one talks about. The cycle is the point. The cycle keeps you coming back and keeps you dependent on the church and the group and each other. It keeps you accountable on accountability partners and tied to these people within the church. These people become spiritual supervisors in a way to you, more than friends. You're not growing, you're just looping over and over and over again. And every time you loop, the church just reinforces its authority. Let's be honest with each other. The church is obsessed with sexuality. If you come from the viewpoint that I do, it looks like control a lot of times. It's not just that you can only have sex in a marital relationship. It's a straight marital relationship. And in that relationship, what can you and can't you do? Can you watch porn with your spouse? Can you masturbate together? Are you allowed to do it separately if you both feel okay with it? All of these things are common questions that Christians have when they get married, because they're still so used to the church having such a controlling hand in their sexual relationships, even in their own relationship to their self sexually. Because if they can convince you early on, like we talked about, and get you in a shame loop that your body is a battleground to begin with, the flesh, and something that you need to deny, that your thoughts and your desires and your impulses are inherently dangerous to yourself and to your future spouse, then they can sell you the solution. And guess what the solution always is? It's submission, confession, and accountability. It's staying connected to leadership and accountability partners, and to never trust yourself. It's not just about staying pure. It's about shaping your identity around failure and avoiding it so that you never stop believing you need them to save you. That's why they make it such a central issue. They don't preach entire sermons around greed. They don't launch a 12-step series or group for people who cheat on their taxes or spouses. But if you watch porn, suddenly you're in spiritual crisis. It's completely an outsized reaction and unfair to people who are just dealing with normal things. And for the people that may actually be dealing with an addiction issue, even if it is, then you need to seek help that is like appropriate help. Them providing you with pure level support is not what you should be doing. If you have a real addiction issue, you should be going and seeking out real treatment and real help and a real therapist. You shouldn't be doing group Bible studies and accountability softwares on your phone unless that's what your therapist is telling you to do. I can't talk about any of this without talking about the purity culture movement, because that is truly the foundation for all of this. It's the foundation for how the evangelical church controls people's sexuality. If you grew up in church in the 90s or 2000s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Purity rings, purity pledges, true love waits, porn kills love, modesty talks at youth group, object lessons involving chewed up gum or dog poop in your ice cream.
Today, I've got this clear glass of water, and I want you to think about this clear glass of water as your life and my life, all right? And I brought some hot sauce, some ketchup, some mustard, all kinds of stuff. And I want you to think of those things as the sins that come into our life that can cause us to become impure. Okay, there's one. So let's say the hot sauce is greed, all right? And we've also got some ketchup. What are some other kinds of sin that can make us impure? Lust. So would you drink this? How many of you say, yeah, I'll guzzle that down? See, this is what happens in our life. We have a lot of impurities. We have a lot of sin that comes into our life.
The list could go on and on. The entire message, though, comes down to saying that your sexuality is dangerous, not just to yourself, but to the people around you. Your body is a temptation. Your thoughts are a liability that could lead you astray from God and are something that really ultimately just need to be conquered. It's not something that you should try to understand and give yourself grace and space to understand and grow. And sometimes to just understand that, you know what? A thought sometimes is just a thought. So when I was in the church, I remember so many of my friends coming to me and confessing that they had porn addictions. It's like crazy, but it's like that's the conclusion that they want you to come to. And this all wasn't just targeted at people that were sexually active. This was targeted at people who were in all stages of life, doing all things of all sexualities and genders. 13-year-old kids, even 13-year-old kids who had never kissed anyone, and just feeling attracted to someone was enough for them to be seen as giving into lust and starting to stumble already. And what does that kind of rhetoric do to a growing mind? One that's learning to accept their own sexuality, whatever that may be. Like, seriously, think about it. What happens to a teenage mind who's just starting to develop the hormones, experience hormones and desire and curiosity, being told that their body is a battleground and every sexual thought is a sin? You're not just going to internalize shame, you're going to be afraid of yourself and your sexuality. And this would go even further for people that are queer or in LGBTQ spaces. This is already terrifying enough for the straight kids who would fall into a normal Christian model. For people who don't, this is even more terrifying. People will think that there's something wrong with them or that they aren't in control of their thoughts and that they must be broken. There's actually a ton of Christian marketing around being sexually broken and your sexual brokenness and how you need God to fix you.
You might be someone who's lived in or you're living in sexual brokenness right now.
Before you've even kissed somebody, being told that you're sexually broken, that is a devastating and disgusting thing to tell a child. Even if you think that you're broken, guess what? You're not. And you're navigating things and developing like literally everyone else. Okay, that's not totally true. I do want to leave room here for people that are asexual. There are definitely, asexual people exist, and not everyone is going to experience this, which could bring new levels of fear too. You're being told, oh, you're going to struggle with this so much, and then you don't experience it at all. That complete absence might be scary in its own way as well. Please, if you're asexual, and you want to share your experience, I would love to learn more about it. I've been doing some research, but I've noticed, it's been noted in my comments that I have left a gap where asexual people belong in my videos, and so I want to try to bring that up a little bit more. I would imagine that it would be really terrifying to not have those feelings and watch all of your peers go through this. But for the most part, people are going to deal with a sex drive and these types of issues during purity. And the purity movement doesn't teach people to make good decisions about sex or informed decisions about their bodies. It actually teaches them to hate themselves for wanting it, and it kind of ends there. It doesn't promote self-control. It promotes self-surveillance and not autonomy. It promotes total abstinence, constant guilt, and hyper-awareness. For some people, this can lead to complete disconnection from their bodies and a ton of sexual and religious trauma. For others, it can cause deep trauma around intimacy, even in a marital context. Because when you've been told your whole life that your body is dangerous, just flipping that switch is not possible for most people. It takes a lot of therapy and healing to get to a place where you can actually enjoy your sexuality again. The church is what makes people ashamed to begin with, and then they offer themselves as the only solution, the only safe place to help people recover from the guilt that they put upon people in the first place. I hate to do this, but the conversation about porn addiction in the church, it's not just spiritual. It's also a business, one that I'm sure you guys have seen. Even if you're not coming from a Christian background, if you look up resources for porn addiction, you are going to find religiously backed things. Things like Porn Kills Love, for example. It's not just spiritual, it's a business. And there is an entire evangelical community built around convincing you that you are addicted to porn and that they have the cure. There are tons of Christian books that talk about freedom from porn. Books like Every Man's Battle, Clean, Finally Free, When Good Men Are Tempted. They all follow the same formula, and that's shame, confession, accountability, repentance, and then victory.
Let's talk books. You are first learning of your husband's unwanted sexual behavior. This book is amazing. It's been through a lot. My husband and I both went through this. He highlighted in one color, I highlighted in the other, and we've been working on kind of just going through our thoughts and stuff together. This is called Happily Even After. You're going to probably want to be a Christian to read. Even if you're not, I think you could still get a lot from it, but it was helpful as a wife. Like, what am I supposed to do? This is so helpful. I'm not a pastor. I still got a ton from it, so.
They don't talk about healthy sexuality. They don't talk about real science. They don't even differentiate between normal porn viewing and compulsive behavior and addiction. They just use the word addiction to sell you a problem, one that comes with a lot of stigma and shame, so that they can sell you the solution. Then you've got the retreats. There are so many to choose from. A lot of the men's programming won't market itself necessarily right away as being about pornography or, anti-pornography and masturbation. But these men's retreats or purity weekends, youth purity weekends, or the 8-week freedom from lust boot camps, the churches pay thousands for group licenses to host these, and speakers make careers out of selling the same redemption story over and over and over again.
What's up, men? Welcome to our men's church conference. We're gonna do the manliest things and eat bacon-wrapped everything and do some sports bra. Anyway, God refers to us as the strongest vessel because we're men. Just kidding. But speaking of the weaker vessel, let's give a round of applause to the women that are going to be cooking, serving, and then cleaning up after us tonight. Just like the Lord intended. Thank you, ladies. All right, now that they're gone, guys, I gotta get really vulnerable with you tonight. So listen, we're all men, right? So I'm going to share with you something really deep and personal. That's the only socially acceptable sin to share in the church as a man. And that is a porn addiction. Men, we have urges, right? God made us very visual creatures, so don't feel too bad about it. But we're all going to get accountability partners tonight, just to text each other throughout the week to make sure we're not looking at porn. And guys, seriously, this is not a time to exchange your favorite sites, okay? That happened last time. This is supposed to stop looking at porn, but also don't feel bad because you're men, but stop it.
They basically all go like this. I stumbled into porn when I was a kid, younger than I should have been. I shouldn't have been exposed, but I was. And then I was trapped. Before I knew what I was doing, I was sucked in and I became addicted. But then I prayed and I asked for healing. Jesus saved me and I turned away from it. Now I found freedom, and you can find freedom too if you follow those same steps in my book.
This is all about you and God. It all started when I was a kid. First or second grade, probably first grade. I was around 6 years old when I first discovered pornography. So indulging in this was pretty gradual as a little kid. Some years I stopped, some years I was, just curious, just popped in my mind, so I would just take a look at it again. And then later on in middle school, it creeped back up on me, and it became an everyday thing. Every single morning before school, bam. And then moving on to high school, it was on and off because that's when I became a little more mature about things. Fast forward to pretty recently. Before I actually started making videos about God, I was gradually building my relationship with God. I was getting closer and closer to God. And my window to my addiction became smaller and smaller. And it became to where I would commit that sin. I would watch porn every now and then. But that big wave of guilt just hits me. It became a cycle of sinning.
It's a testimonial economy. Sin, salvation, sell the cure. Because salvation on your own probably won't take away your own sexual desires on your own. So maybe you're doing it wrong. You just need to buy the book. You just need to go to the conference. And then, of course, the tech filters. Have you ever heard of Covenant Eyes?
Covenant Eyes is the software that we've been using a long time in our household. So what it does real simply is it has an algorithm and software. It's way above my head how it works, but it scans. You obviously opt into it, but it scans all the activity on your phone or your devices, your laptop, tablet, what have you. We do all of it. And then it sends a report to your accountability partner. So my accountability partner right now is Jack, my son, right? And so he's 17. So he and I get a report of all the things that are on our phones or all of our devices once a week. If anything objectionable comes up, your accountability partner gets an immediate notice. I'm proud to tell you my son he's got a clean slate. It looks for keywords, search terms, and also images, and it will send your accountability partner a blurred picture.
I grew up with it on my phone in middle school and high school. That's right, I am like patient zero for Covenant Eyes. Not really, but it was super popular then, and it's super popular today still. There's even more softwares like this, but I'm the most familiar with Covenant Eyes, and they all do the same thing, and so I think for this video, I'm just gonna focus on that, but if you're curious, you can look up even more of these types of softwares. Covenant Eyes is an app that monitors everything you do online, and it sends a report to your accountability partner, which this was not, I didn't consent to this obviously in middle school and high school, and it was my parents. They just would monitor it for all of us kids to make sure that none of us kids were like watching porn on their internet, their good Christian internet. It's marketed as the Christian solution to porn, and it is literally a multi-million-dollar company.
Pornography will destroy your life. Here are 3 ways to quit watching it. Way number 1, repent. Number 2, get an accountability partner. Number 3, which is get the Covenant Eyes app on the App Store. What's really cool is you can use my code HANNAH30 to get 30 days free.
They have church partnerships, affiliate deals, and entire ministries that are structured around this software. And the best part for them, it's a subscription model. You're gonna need it forever, and so you're always going to be doling out money. Don't just buy it once, you pay every single month for years, because if you quit, then are you really being held accountable? So now your guilt has a price tag attached to it, or at least if you want to appear pure before your peers. Sorry, that's a tongue twister. And I want to be so clear, you guys, this isn't just something that impacts men. Yes, men are impacted in this type of rhetoric more than women are, just that I think that they get taught it more frequently, but it is certainly taught to women as well, and I would say that the shame might even be higher for women, because it's taught that women are almost meant to not have sexuality at all, as if we need to be convinced into a sexual relationship. So a woman struggling with issues relating to sexuality can be so humiliating for her. There is an entire market built around this for women specifically too, and it's following the exact same trajectory. More books, more groups, more conferences, more apps, more accountability, more shame, more humiliation, more church. And here's the kicker. None of this is actually based on real mental health models. None of these programs are built by real mental health therapists or certified sex therapists. They're not teaching people emotional regulation, trauma healing, or self-understanding. They teach sin management or behavior policing. Who benefits from all of this shame? Who benefits when your normal, healthy, and human sexuality is labeled as sin? When your body is seen as a problem to be managed and your private thoughts become public accountability reports? Who benefits when that happens? When every slip up leads you back to a new product or conference or donation? It's not you. Entire industry that's built around this. It's built around sex and purity, and they found a way to monetize your guilt. They convince you that you're addicted when you're not, that you're broken when you're just a human, and that your healing can only come from them. They tell you how you have to view your relationships. There's nothing wrong if you're watching this at home and you're going, yeah, I can get on board with not calling everything addiction, but I still don't want my spouse watching porn. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that what is wrong is telling people that if they do that or they do make a mistake, immediately that they have an addiction, when that is just not following the science. Some people may have an addiction, but again, studies show that the people most likely to say that they have an addiction issue with this are people in religious communities. That is, your own personal feelings about porn is the #1 indicator of whether or not you'll call it an addiction or not. I think that's very telling. There are a ton of issues within the porn industry, that goes without saying. The point of this video, again, I just really want to reiterate, is to not call everything an addiction and make people get sucked into this shame cycle when it's not an addiction. And if it is an addiction, they should be seeking real help, not going to church conferences, okay? I think the most compassionate thing that we can do is give people real help when they're looking for help, not send them on, like, I don't know, money-grabbing scavenger hunts. All right, you guys, in my research, I found XXX Church, which I need to do more digging on, but this ad is a representation of something that I think I would probably support if it was going to be religious help that you were receiving for this. They address things in this like mental health, not just blaming yourself and needing to try harder. I'll let you guys watch it for yourselves, but let me know if you've seen anything else about XXX Church. This, again, is an example of something that I think I would be more okay with. They're not necessarily just calling everything addiction, and if they are calling it addiction, they are offering appropriate mental health help, or at least that's what they're claiming to do.
Set apart, different, atypical. We don't say that as a humble brag or marketing gimmick. It's just who we are, and we wear that badge proudly. You see, we don't treat porn and sex addiction like simple issues that can be addressed with a glossy 30-minute YouTube video or 3-part sermon series. We don't believe in high-priced coaching programs that only benefit a select few, or elaborate funnel strategies aimed to move people towards high-priced resources that promise quick fixes or your money back. We don't think you just need to pray more, try harder, or wear blinders on your eyes. And we definitely don't think we can solve these problems through anti-porn legislation and censorship laws. Heck, we don't even think porn is the real problem, because we know that porn, sex addiction, and the mental health factors that drive these compulsions are deeply complex matters. This is why we don't spend most of our money on huge building projects and bloated staff salaries, but invest our time and finances in developing quality, affordable programs and supportive communities that offer acceptance, grace, and love. And it's also why we don't waste effort on developing plans to increase our influencer status or fill our speaker calendar, because we rather spend our time in the trenches engaging with those who need our help the most. The work is not easy. It's not glamorous. At times, it's mundane. And it definitely doesn't offer the most appealing optics, but it's desperately needed. And that's why we need you, because while we might be set apart, we certainly can't do this work standing all alone.
You can see how this is a much different vibe than some of the other promotions we've taken a look at today. Here's the truth. You guys are not broken for being sexual, having a sexuality, for being interested in sex. You're not addicted for being curious, and you're not unholy for being a human. You deserve better. If you're ready to heal, not just manage your sin, but truly heal, start by letting go of the voice that was condemning you and making you feel dirty and ashamed to begin with. All right, this is kind of a heavy one and a difficult one to get through, but these are just my thoughts on it. Again, I know there's a ton of different views on this stuff. It's just how the church presents it to people and how they use it as a form of control. I would love to hear about, if you're in the church now, is this something that you agree with? Do you have Covenant Eyes on your phone? Do you feel like it's been helpful and empowering for you? Or do you agree with me that it is shaming and not something that you want to engage with? Okay, thank you so much for watching my videos. I've been so excited about the recent growth that I've been seeing on my channel, and all of your comments have been so thoughtful, and it means so much to me. I truly, genuinely love every single comment that you guys are leaving, even if you guys are giving me criticism, because yeah, I just appreciate that you guys are engaged with these conversations. If you are watching these videos, maybe you'll be able to relate to this. I guess let me know if you do, but I just feel like these are such niche topics I guess maybe not this one as much, but some of the things I'm talking about are so niche, or, you know, the exvangelical community is so niche. It's hard to find people to talk to about stuff like this and have a nuanced conversation. And so putting these videos out, I was really hoping to just maybe find a couple people that would comment maybe on every other video and have some level of a conversation there. But instead, it's like hundreds of you are leaving thoughtful comments and engaging with it. And it makes me feel like I'm not alone, because I grew up being fundamentalist and homeschooled, and I just don't really, you know, the people that I grew up with like that are pretty much still in it, or if a lot of people that left are really, you know, angry about it, which is, again, totally fair, but I just really appreciate that I can put out my viewpoints or my opinions and then have these conversations with you guys, and that you guys are willing to let it be a conversation and to educate me as well. And yeah, I promise to keep doing better and trying to learn more. Thank you so much for watching. Please double check to make sure that you are subscribed, like this video, and hit share and copy link. You don't have to send it anywhere, I promise, but it helps way more than you think that it does. Have a great week.
Anyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery. Doesn't that make everyone an adulterer?